The work session of the Annapolis City Council on Thursday, September 17th, 2020 at 3:05 will be called to order. At this time, would everyone willing and able please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Can't we just get a recording of that? We're so bad.
It's so when you do it on your own, it's weird, isn't it? Do you want to patch in Chief Jackson and his staff, please, for ID 235-20, re-entry program. Not me.
Okay.
What happened?
I think it's somebody here. Everybody's need to meet. Okay, gotcha. Everybody on mute? Yes. Somebody's not on mute. Might be you. Yes. Okay. All right, I'm muted.
So there's a possibility, Stan, for you guys to be in another room. Yeah.
Whose computer's on now? You on
Hers, she's not. I don't have.
I'm muted.
Oh, I can see it.
I think it's good now because both your audios are off. Let's see.
Hey, Rob. With the volume, cut the volume down.
Hear him if he's on mute.
So, Chief, you're off mute now.
Yes.
You're on. The problem is that Chief Jackson and they're the same. That's kind of get them to change.
Okay, are there any questions on the reentry program?
So, Chief, you ready to go? Okay, unmute.
Okay, good afternoon. Can everybody hear me?
Have you been working on some camera angles with Fred?
No, sir. This is my best side, though. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, Mayor Buckley and the Annapolis City Council. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about what I think is an extremely important initiative in the Annapolis Police Department. Before I get started, I'll just kind of give a real quick overview about reentry or And reentry is not the actual name of it, but that's more the verb instead of the noun, is to take a social approach to crime prevention by providing opportunities for people who are either at risk of offending or to provide resources to people who are returning back to the community with the for the purpose of reducing the rate of recidivism in Annapolis. And for those of you who are not criminal justice majors, recidivism is a repeat offender. And so I have a number of people here that I'd like to introduce before I give an overview that'll talk individually about what they do and what they bring to the table. And this is still in the very beginning stages of this process, but I think it's important to note that it's my philosophy that we start doing the work. We don't have a lot of planning sessions. I don't like a lot of planning sessions when we have some of the issues that we're facing during this time with the issues, the violence, the Black Lives Matter movement, where the public's demanding that police departments all across the country take a more social approach to crime and social disorganization. And so what I like to do is let's start doing the work, and we'll kind of build the plane as we're flying it to provide services and resources and to provide outreach, and then we'll kind of tweak it as we go along. So I'm very proud and very honored to have the people that I have with me today, because we've serviced over 30 residents right here in the city of Annapolis, something that a lot of police departments are not doing. As a matter of fact, I was just contacted by the Arundel County Police Chief today and asked if we would spend some time with them, because the interim chief in Arundel County wants to start a reentry program himself, because he sees the value and he's heard about it. Word is spreading all around the region that the Annapolis Police Department is really taking the lead to provide a social approach to crime and social disorganization. We have to work with families. And so I'll just kind of go right into my remarks. I've argued for 20 years as a police officer and an academic is that when you look at crime and look at criminology, everything has a nexus. Everything has a root cause. And so, you know, when you really look at it, some of our most distressed areas in America, not just the city of Annapolis or the state of Maryland, look at Baltimore if you want to use the model. Most of the areas that are distressed are areas that experience high concentrations of things that police don't control. You know, drug addiction, alcoholism, poverty, absentee parents, schools that are struggling, you know, neighborhoods that are dilapidated, subpar housing. All those things contribute to behavior. It manifests itself in criminal behavior. We have laws on the books that regulate how we should conduct ourselves. But when people are suffering from mental illness and drug addiction, physical abuse, domestic violence, sexual abuse, children are hungry, that distracts from them their ability to comply with the dominant values of society. So in far too many communities, the only thing they see is police, courts, and corrections, and not enough services like functional families, relevant schools, relevant faith-based organizations, and some synergy in the community that will enable people to kind of get along and coexist peacefully. I'm a big fan of Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory asserts that you can never self-actualize until your basic needs are met. You can't expect a child to excel in school when they come to school hungry, because that's a distraction, when they've been up all night because their parents are fighting, when they're being bullied, and all those other things that will affect their psychology. They can't self-actualize and get good grades until their basic needs are met. And so what we're trying to do in the Annapolis Police Department is work with neighborhoods to provide those basic needs. And that's the strong component of what reentry is. When people come back to the community, we can't expect them to come back to the community and comply with the values of the community if they have basic needs that are not met. So the drug trade and doing robberies and burglaries and stealing cars and doing all those things that we don't want become more attractive if we don't provide opportunities for them. And that's what reentry is all about. And so I'll start off first by saying who's here today. We have Stan Bradford, and you know Stan's background. Stan Bradford is a retired colonel, which is the third highest rank in the Baltimore police structure. He commanded the homicide unit, probably better than half his career. And I asked him to come here to work with the cold case squad. What he did agree to do, in addition to cold case, he says, look, Chief, if you will give me reentry, then we could use reentry, also pair that up with cold case, and it would help us develop intelligence information and sources of information. And so I thought they dovetail very nicely. They're very congruent to one another. And so I thought that was a natural fit. So he's going to talk about what he's doing today. And then we have Agent Lazik from Parole and Probation. And just so you know, Parole and Probation, they have assigned 2 agents with office space right here at 199 Taylor Avenue in the station house. And so when their parolees or probationers have to have meetings, they come here instead of the state agency. They come right here so we can triage them, much like a nurse does. And when somebody has experienced trauma in the hospital, whoever their needs are, they do a needs assessment, and then we can work from there. So I'm very happy to have Parole and Probation as partners. We also have my good friend, Vanessa Bright. She's from the Maryland Reentry Resource. And Vanessa has truly been a blessing. Many of you may not know, but a couple of weeks ago, when young Cameron Wallace was killed, the mother had concerns that remaining in Annapolis Gardens may pose a safety risk to her and her surviving children. And so we had crisis intervention to put the mother up in a hotel away from Bowman Court for a few days until after the funeral. Of course, Alderwoman Rhonda Pendell-Charles was a partner with me to make sure that we went around to various communities to ensure them that we had a strategic plan to at least suppress the violence. And we almost guaranteed, and I know that Rhonda Pendell-Charles and myself, we looked at each other and wiped our foreheads. And DeJuan Gay was there for a couple of those nights as well, when we said we would do everything humanly possible to see to it that after the young man was shot on the next day, the 17-year-old was shot the next day on Crow Street, we assured them that we would have enough visibility that no other violence would occur. And we looked at each other and wiped our heads and very nervous and anxious that no other violence would occur. And I think we were riding the city of Annapolis, going to just about every hacker property and Section 8 property in the city, just to ensure that there was a presence there and no other violence, retaliatory violence occurred. And so Vanessa Bright, once crisis intervention, Steve Thomas from Anne Arundel County says, look, we ran out of money. We can no longer house Ms. Wallace, so we have to find other alternatives. And I know that Dave Gerald called me and expressed his concern. What are we going to do about housing Ms. Wallace until we can get her voucher moved? Well, Vanessa Bright stepped in and provided resources and funding along with Robert Horn to put Ms. Wallace up until her voucher could be transferred to Anne Arundel County. And I'm happy to report that her voucher did come through and we got her out of Annapolis Gardens, and now she's safe in another community. So we don't have to worry about Ms. Wallace and her surviving children also becoming victims. So I'd like to publicly thank Vanessa Bright for providing that opportunity. She's here today and she'll talk. And then we have Mr. Walter Phillips, if I'm pronouncing his name, Billups, I'm sorry. Is that right, Billups? Billups. Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Walter Billups from the National Center Initiative Alternative. And that's an organization that provides training and job opportunities for individuals, both men and women, who are coming back into the community who requires job training and other sort resources. And so that's pretty much my part of this. I promise each and every one of you, I'm looking at you on the screen, and I promise each and every one of you, when you gave me this opportunity, Mr. Mayor, and when you confirmed me, Council, on July 31st of 2019, that I would bring a social approach to law enforcement in the city of Annapolis. And we're doing just that. And today is just the beginning of many initiatives that we're going to embark upon with our federal partners, our state partners. And so this is a very important part of this. This is the nexus. And out of this, I'm hoping that a lot of other programs and other opportunities will sprout up. And then that the Annapolis Police Department, I don't think that's far-fetched, become the model that everybody in the country will be looking to when we talk about the new policing model. We're really going to shift the paradigm in the truest sense of the word. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Stan Bradford, and he can give some remarks and kind of talk about it. We have a PowerPoint presentation, I think, prepared, or slides.
We're just going to talk about it.
Oh, we're going to talk about it from the slides?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I think I met everybody that's on here. You got it?
I'll watch.
I've met all of you. You guys know my past, as the chief said, that I retired from Baltimore City, and I commanded the homicide unit twice. I also, upon my leave, and I commanded the investigative. I was the chief of detectives for all investigations. Myself and Robert Horn, who you will hear from a little later, him and Danette Smichael, you will hear from them. We met, and one of the things that was important to me when I started looking at some of these homicide cases, that some of the witnesses that we had come down and some of the suspects that come down, all of them pretty much had the same type of background. None of them were working, never had any particular opportunity. And the biggest problem was that they distrust police. We didn't have a good relationship with them. And that's one of the focus that I want to tackle here, is that we start to build some trust with the community. That's what I aim to do through reentry, and what I also aim to do through the cold case. So that's what we're working on. That part is important. But just let me give you a little background on what our program is. So we talk about reentry. We renamed that. The name of our program is the Positive Impact Program. The Positive Impact Program. We think that's more suitable for what we're trying to do. We knew there was kind of a negative connotation when it comes to talking about reentry. I know the chief talked about some resources that we have here. By no means that is all the resources that we have. And Officer Smichael and Officer Rob Horn will talk about that. Our motto is PEEP, P-E-E-P, and that's people effectively encouraging people. And that's what we aim to do through this program. We want to make sure that we connect with the community, that we provide resources to the community. Now, some may ask is, why is the police department in the business of finding jobs and doing these type of things? There's nobody else in the community that come in contact with vulnerable adults more so than police officers. And my hopes is that every police officer in this agency will find a value in this and decide to use this program and reach out to the officers that's on the ground that's heading this program up, and make sure we can connect people who are in need to these programs. So the Positive Impact Program is a program designed to help individuals originally released from custody to reintegrate them back into the community. Now, of course, right now with COVID-19, we're not able to get into the prisons as we normally would. Generally, when we start this type of program, we will meet individuals from Annapolis that's already incarcerated, and we will start their program while they're incarcerated. So at the time that they're released, we already have a plan set up for them. So when they come out, they're not wondering what they're going to be doing. They're not going back into the community, getting back into some of their old habits around the same old people. So we try to have a plan for them. So right now we're working with parole and probation, and Chief Agent Laxett will talk to you about that. We took an approach, if we can't get inside the prison, let's work with parole and probation to have access to some of their clients. and probation agreed. They moved here. They're seeing their clients here, and that way we have access to them. So the process is different for, whose phone is that? So the process is different for every person, and that process is impacted by a number of things. One, it could be impacted by the sentence that's imposed by the judge. Of course, if you have someone who is sentenced long-term, we got to be able to understand what that sentence is and what the restrictions are and start working with them. Then it can be affected by the resources of the local community. What we would try to do is use the resources that we have here in Annapolis, but we know that the infrastructure here in Annapolis and some of the resources and job is not as big as we would like. So what we did, we brought those relationships that we had from Baltimore, Anne Arundel County, and other places. We brought those resources to bear so we can utilize those resources. The most important part of this is the person's willingness to voluntarily take the steps to ensure their success. We can provide all the opportunity we have, we can provide all the resources, but it's up to that individual to stick with the program, to trust that the program is going to work for them, and be able to see this thing through so that when they are graduate from a program or they get a job, that they are successful. Just a little history, talking about American prisons. Some research would tell you that our jails hold over 2.1 million individuals at any given time across this country, which amount to thousands of individuals that's released back into our community from local, state, and federal prison each year. What are we going to do with them? Because they're coming back. And we, as law enforcement and as a community, can't allow them to come back as they have in the past into the same situation that they left into. So that's why we started this program. It was successful in Baltimore. We want to replicate that here. One of the tragedies, I think, in Baltimore that we had so much that went on there, it was hard to really qualify exactly how well the program worked. I think it worked well from my perspective, but here in Annapolis, I think we're small enough, and I don't think we have the impact that we would have in Baltimore, that the program can really be successful, and I think we can really see a positive impact. So number one, we do this to try to build trust with the community. That's important. We also want to help the individual to develop and reintegrate back into society and the system. And we do this by providing those job opportunities. So I'll turn this over to Officer Smichael and Rob Horn. They're going to give you some specifics on how many people we have helped, the type of programs that they have gone into, and where we're going to be going from here. But did I go off? Can you still hear me?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And also, let me also say, not only are we providing opportunities for job and training, we also providing opportunities. We've been helping a few people who have been homeless that officers have called us through our contacts. We provided opportunities for people to get off the street and drug and alcohol treatment. We have assisted individuals who have had drug and alcohol issues to get them into some sort of treatment. So that has worked well. So I'll turn it over to them, and we'll wait to hear questions from you, and we'll field any questions. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Officer Smichael.
Good afternoon, Officer Horn.
We're gonna, hopefully everyone can see. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. We have, we're gonna present a PowerPoint in reference to the Positive Impact Program.
So the Annapolis Police Department Positive Impact Program, PIP, collaborates with local government and non-government agencies to improve circumstances for clients presently in a detention facility, preparing to enter the community, and currently in the community. So just a little bit about myself. So I've been with APD now for about 5 months. I retired from Baltimore City Police Department. I spent 26 years there. And Alderman Pendle Charles, she broke me in as a state's attorney. So I've been doing her all my career. And so I retired from Baltimore City Police Department, where actually reentry started there. We started a reentry program there back in 2006 under then Commissioner Ham. And basically we partnership with a variety of different agencies, employers, Department of Public Safety. We partnership with mental health clinicians, parole and probation to build out a program that will be able to help at-risk offenders as well as those coming home from incarceration. So from that time up until I retired, the program really built itself out very nicely to the extent that we got a $250,000 grant from the DOJ. So there were judges who joined board, Judge Wanda Hurd, Judge Gellert. These judges joined board and we formed a collateral court where they offered their clients this program. And we were able to work very close with PNP as well as the courts and Department of Public Safety. We were able to go inside the correctional facilities and give those inmates those soft skills that they needed anywhere from 18 months to 2 years before release so that they can transition back into the community and be able to take advantage of these services. So that partnership that we have here now in Annapolis, because basically when I retired and came to Annapolis, we brought additional resources, which is at no cost to the city of Annapolis. We have Gondenzia and Crownsville, and they're helping us with the drug and alcohol treatment. We have placed individuals there for treatment. The U.S. Attorney's Office for reentry, they are our partners. Of course, parole and probation who are present with us now. Vehicles for Change. We have a trash recycling company that has hired some of our clients. We are partnered with GBMC Hospital that are currently about to interview a few of our clients. NCIA, who's here right now, and Walter, he'll speak to that. And the Maryland Department of Labor, we're partnered with them, and Anne Arundel County Workforce, and of course, Vanessa from Maryland Reentry Resource Center here in Annapolis. And so we officially kicked off June of this year, about 2 months ago. And so I'm going to stop here and let Officer Smichael just give you some numbers as to where we are within the last few months.
Okay, since June, we assessed 78 individuals, men and women, for various support through the community. We don't just tailor this program to people who are just leaving prison or in need. We leave in prison. We also tailor the program to individuals in the community who are in need. So we don't turn anyone down who is in need of substance abuse treatment or permanent employment or housing. So since June, like I said, it was 78 individuals from who were incarcerated that we assessed, but we've helped over 400 families in the Annapolis City area with some form of resource, which includes food assistance, housing, and residential residential in-treatment program. So drug and substance abuse programs. Okay.
So as you see the slide presentation, we've done orientations here at APD where we've had clients report here that are on parole probation to hear about the resources that's available and upcoming training that's free for them and transportation provided. So go ahead. Slide.
Okay. So our goal is to target the needs and offer remedies for folks who are in need. Like I said, just not folks who have been in prison, but folks in the community. We try to supply them with clothing, food, transportation, housing, employment, education, healthcare, substance abuse, getting identification cards, which is very important for many, not just folks who've been incarcerated. Help them get their documents. And something that I take very seriously in the community is the mental health behavioral issues.
Okay, so this is the Anne Arundel County Career Center. So we are working with the center to refer our clients to the center. They have a whole host of resources that's available, nursing programs, plumbing, electrical, you name it, it's here at this career center. So we're working with them. And so why is it important? Assist incarcerated individuals transition back into their communities, as we mentioned earlier, after being released. Assess at-risk individuals with employment and education and opportunities. And it strengthens relationships between the community and the police. So the focus here is the success of each client, reduction of client re-entering prison, as Chief Jackson mentioned earlier, recidivism, reduction of recidivism. Does it work? Since the program officially started in June of 2020, a few months ago, over 72 individuals were assessed.
78
it's
now.
78 now. We have a flyer with our contact information. And trust me, this is 7 days a week that we work. Yep. We work over the weekends, and we're working Saturdays, we're working Sundays. Our phone rings every day. The flyers are posted in the community, and the residents are using the number, and they're calling us, and we're taking people to drug treatment programs. We have people currently right now getting drug treatment.
As a matter of fact, this morning I was on my way in to work, and I got a call in reference to a young lady in Harbor House that was being evicted. We were able to stop the eviction yesterday, Officer Horn and myself, and get her into a residential treatment program. She was being evicted because she violated her lease agreement with something that she did on the property last weekend. And we're able to intervene on her behalf, stop the eviction, and we're going to be getting her into residential treatment on Monday. So it does work. Go ahead about some of the photos.
Okay, so these photos one of them is in Baltimore, it's the NCIA, in which Walter will speak. Walter Billups, who is the recruitment director, he'll be speaking in a few minutes. And then to our, I think that's our right, yes. Is the food pantry where we had passed out food into the community.
Right. So we serve the Hispanic community. We don't discriminate, and we don't turn anyone away. It doesn't matter who needs help, we will definitely get them help.
So Positive Impact, as you see, actually is a program that started in Baltimore. So this is why we took that name, and it's just positively impacting communities and building relationships.
Thank you. Let me speak on that real quick. Let me speak on it real quick. So Positive Impact, if you saw Alderman Gay there, and there's some pictures of all of us here. So it just so happened, and it's just coincidental, that we chose Positive Impact, and there was a Positive Impact in Baltimore. But this group is a violence interruption group. And what we also plan to do with individuals that we're helping, we also asking them to help us to get to some of the other people, tell their friends, and let's try to solve some of the conflict we have in our community. So as we continue to grow the program, we're going to be asking these men and some women to help us to combat some of the conflicts here in Annapolis. Some of the guys that come back, they have some unresolved issues. We don't want them to come back settling old scores. So we're going to be talking to them about conflict resolution, anger management. So there's a whole host of other things that we're going to be doing in the future to make sure not just to provide those opportunities, but also try to cut back on some of the violence by having a group like Positive Impact talk to these young men and women in reference to stopping some of the violence.
Okay.
You got something.
Okay. So the rest is just photos of just the work that we're doing. And so what we like to do here now is turn it over to Agent Lazick, and she can speak to the relationship that we've developed with parole and probation.
Good afternoon, everybody. Agent Lazick, parole and probation. I have been assigned to Annapolis field office for near 10 years. Since
can't hear very well.
You're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute.
He can't hear you.
You got it? She's on.
I hear a thing.
now,
Let's start all over.
good afternoon, everybody. Agent Lazick, parole and probation. I have been with Annapolis field office for about 10 years now and have worked with APD closely since I started. I supervise a couple different caseloads. Currently, I have probably the least group of people. I supervise registered and non-registered sex offenders. I started with domestic violence, and APD was always there to help. I can call civilians or officers that will provide me with home visit assistance. They will provide me with the resources that some of my offenders might need. And when I heard about the program that they have, I was connected with Officer Horn and Officer Smeichel. The one thing that struck me is they said that we don't turn anybody down. We help everybody. And with registered sex offenders, that's what they always get. They get turned down, and they are always told that they can't get assistance. I have, within the last 10 minutes, learned that one of my registered sex offenders has successfully been hired in a hospital and is working. Miss Vanessa has helped him start with, I think it was like a pressure washing job. He has been looking for a job for over 2 years. We found a restaurant job. He was fired. It was just, as soon as people find out who he is and what he's on supervision for, they kind of shut the door for him. So I can tell you from my experience and from experience of that Agent Thomas as another agent and from probation, we have had nothing but positive experience. I'm happy finally to be able to tell my people that I can find them a job and I can provide them with the resources. And not tell them, let's look, let's hope we get a job. I can tell them we are going to get a job. And for the first time, I can provide them with a phone number for the police officer or for the police department and tell them, call them. You're not going to get arrested. You will get the resources. Usually they don't want to take a number from a police officer because they're intimidated. But I'm thankful that we have resources like this. I hope that we are able to service more. I know they service at least half of my population, so between 15 and 20 of my offenders have been successfully either put in treatment or placed in assisted with the job placement. So I hope this lasts forever, as long as it lasts a while. I'm in Annapolis and I have offenders that I supervise. So I'm very thankful. So thank you all for willing to work with parole and probation.
Okay, so now we're going to introduce Walter Billups from NCIA.
Yeah, I'm Walter Billups, Recruitment Director from NCIA. Just a brief snapshot. NCIA has been in existence since 1977. We're on our 43rd year. We have close to 600 employees, and there's a few departments that come under NCIA. And right now, I'm the Recruitment Director for the Herbert J. Halter Vocational Training Center. I developed a relationship with Officer Horn approximately 3 years ago because we provide vocational training for the reentry population. In essence, we have crash course trainings, 3.5 months, 3 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, 5 different modules. All the trainings are accompanied with nationally recognized certifications. We also have Workforce Development Institute, where we provide wraparound services for each individual. So we actually are more than just a vocational training center. Each individual has a case manager. Each individual has a workforce development team that works with them. And we also help them with any barriers they may have that prevent them from being successful. We've already trained close to 1,000 individuals out of the Baltimore area. 40% of them have been reentry, and our recidivism rate amongst the graduates is like in the single digits, 8 to 9%. The 5 modules that we train in are auto mechanics, CDL Class B license, HVAC, heat and air conditioning, refrigeration, a licensed drone training, and culinary arts. Each training is approximately 3.5 months. We pretty much try to squeeze 3 to 4 cohorts in per year. So that's a snapshot of what NCIA does, and I have had nothing but success operating and collaborating with Officer Horn. Thank you.
So now I want to introduce Vanessa Bright.
Good afternoon. I'm Vanessa Bright, the Director of Maryland Reentry Resource Center. Maryland Reentry Resource Center has been around about a year. We first started last year working with some clients over at Bay Ridge, trying to help them with their work readiness skills and finding a job. And then after that, we continued that process, through 2020, but it was really this year. And because of what happened around COVID, that we've really been able to get some of the CARES funding where we could really make a bigger impact. I now have 3 interns that 2 are from Anne Arundel Community College and 1 is from Regents University. So they're helping with the case management. So they each have a caseload, which helps me be able to concentrate on some other things. And we provide intensive case management. So whatever the barriers are that someone is facing, whether it's getting a driver's license, to getting a job, or needing treatment or Medicaid, we help them try to alleviate all of those barriers. In addition to that, in July, we started a pressure washing company, and we did hire a couple of Agent Lacey and her clients. So we've done about, in 2 months, we've power washed about 63 houses. We are paid to do this service. So, and we've doubled our revenues from the first month to the second month. So pressure washing is really doing well. We're fortunate that I was just able to pitch our project to Leadership Anne Arundel, and Chief Jackson, who is part of that Leadership Academy, is going to be working on my project, as well as his colleagues, and they will be helping to create a business plan for our social enterprise and any other social enterprises that we want to look at, as well as some other things they decided that they want to take on. So I guess that's full circle with Chief Jackson. The other thing that we have plans to do is to make sure that everybody has a mentor. We haven't really got that initiated yet, but that is something that we're going to work on. And then a couple of weeks ago, we started a support group for women returning from incarceration. So we have a networking and support group specifically for women, because incarceration for women is very different than it is for men, and there are different needs and different trauma affects the women in a different way than it does the men. So we do have a support group for that. So as far as Officer Horn, I think he's my highest referral source. And so we've helped some people with hotel placement. We've helped some people get into the shelter. We have a couple of people that we're working on with the rapid rehousing program all through Lighthouse, and Karen Williams, who runs that Safe Harbor program. Of course, we've employed some people And then we've helped a few of those people get jobs. So it's a great partnership. I love working with Danette and Rob, and it's been a good experience so far. Thank you.
Okay, good. So that's everybody who has presented. As I said before, that I think this program is important, not only to provide those services for people who are in need. We only been at this for several months. I think that this program is going to grow immensely over the next several months. Looking down the road in about a year, I'm hoping to add probably more people into this effort by way of police officers who's going to buy into it. I could tell you that initially, I think it was suspect that officers probably did not believe in this program, but we see now that officers are starting to call Smichael and they calling Rob Horn and they asking for their resources, they're asking for help, and we see those officers buying into this. So I'm just hoping and praying that this continue to grow, and it will. One of the things I want to point out, when we decided to start this program, we knew we had to add another person to help Rob Horn. And we held an interview process, and we asked 2 members of the community to come in and help us select that second individual. And overwhelmingly, they chose Officer Smichael just because of the work that she had done previously in the community. So any way that we can include the community in this effort will be great, and we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to assess the need of the community and those who are in need, and we're just going to be a willing partner and ready to go. And we think if we continue to do this, we'll continue to grow that trust between police and the community. So with that, we'll take any question that the panel may have.
Chief Jackson, I just want to mention before you start taking questions, the 2 community people were, who are the 2 community people? Rita Dorsey and I believe it was Tony Pratt. Rita Dorsey and Tony Pratt were the ones who chose Smichael. Is that correct? I don't think you can hear me. Can you hear me, Stan? Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yes, okay. Any questions?
Yeah. I've had my hand up for 3 or 4 minutes.
I'm going to go straight to you, Fred. I just want to thank everybody for this presentation. This is what reform looks like. I really am impressed with your efforts. My favorite part of the presentation was when you, on the slideshow, you projected that you'd service 72 people. Was that the number that I saw? And then somebody made a correction because you were so excited that there were 6 more people that had signed up since that 72. And that shows kind of the passion that you're dealing with this. Of course, the intensive case management is an essential thing, and it's such a great initiative, and this social enterprise is really exciting. So I want to thank you all, and then I want to go to Alderman Pound, who's had his hand up for half an hour.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, it's been since the colonial times here in Annapolis. I'm getting a little stiff here. What types of offenders do you take into the program? I mean, what are the crimes they've been convicted of? Is it strictly nonviolent, I assume?
So there is no restriction. So you heard Agent Lassick talk about sex offenders. So if that don't make your skin crawl, that we're helping people who are sex offenders. So we have helped people who have committed murders. Our stance is that the prison system going to release them and they're going to come back into our communities, we got to give them something positive to do. I'm not sure whether everybody believes that, but if they're going to be a part of the community, we have to find something positive for them to do so they don't come back and reoffend and find other victims.
Well, if I know Agent Lozick, I haven't had anything with her in a number of years, but she's pretty tough. So some of them might choose to go back to jail. I don't know, but she did a great job. I'm just kidding.
Alderwoman Finlayson, then Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you. You gentlemen have been talking about this program for some time, so I'm glad that it is up and rolling. My question has to do with the training. You mentioned, Mr. Bradford, that there would be training opportunities for vocational type trainings. Do you have certified instructors for those training opportunities, or are you sending them out of house to do it, or how is that working?
So I'm gonna turn it over to Walter, but all of our training are through our partners, but I'll let Walter take that question.
Yes, Herbert J. Halter Vocational Training Center does have certified instructors, and we're all backed by national recognized industries for whatever particular training module that they're in. So the answer would be yes, we do have that. And an individual actually has flexibility when he comes into our program. It's a 9-to-1 class or a 1-to-5 class, because a lot of individuals, basically when they come from reentry, they also need to have a job. So we help them with temporary positions or part-time jobs. They're in their training for 3.5 months. And then we find them full-time employment in the industry that they trained in. Right now, our employment our outcome data is like 75% are employed at the average hourly salary of $17.40.
We have a growing number.
Let me say this. So as it pertains to the training, our role is to connect individuals to that training. So we don't necessarily do the training from APD standpoint. We're going to be the people who assess and make the decision to where they're going to go and ask our partners to accept these individuals for their training. So we're just going to be a conduit. And the benefit that we get from that is to have those relationships with that part of the community and build that trust within the community. So we can continue to bring on those individuals and farm them out to that training. I think we'll be fine. That's our role at APD.
Well, that's excellent. Absolutely. I am thrilled to hear, as I said, that it is moving forward. We have a growing number of young people who are graduating from high school with nothing to do. They're not equipped to go to college. They haven't made it into the vocational programs within the school system. And so they graduate from high school, and unfortunately, some of them end up in trouble and end up in hopefully programs you're talking about. Will you be allowing folks who have not been incarcerated into your program?
So the answer is yes, and I'm gonna let Rob talk about that. But I know Chief Jackson and on. Chief Jackson has a relationship with the president of the Anne Arundel Medical Center. We're going to be forming a relationship with them also to take on exactly what you're just talking about. So there are programs that we have that will take individuals who don't have any record whatsoever, graduated from high school, and what we want to be able to do is start working with the schools to get them attached to those programs even before they graduate. Rob, would you tackle that also?
Yes, we also met with Anne Arundel County's workforce center. And they're going to be also providing training for.
You're breaking up a lot.
Who are graduating from high schools or are graduates. They're going to be providing them with opportunities for training. Just earlier today, before this before our meeting, I was in Hellthorpe in Arbutus, and I met with some roofing companies who are providing training for all different types of fields within roofing. And they're starting them off just training as someone coming in with no experience, $16 an hour. And so we're going to be partnering with them and getting this information to the young people as well.
Thank you. I'm not sure I got all of that because it was so broken up, but I will have a further discussion with the chief about that. Thank you.
Alderman Tierney, we're over an hour too, so everybody, we have 2 more things on the agenda.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to say that to prepare for this, I just did some research on the reentry, nationally, and the reason why this can't be ignored, that we have about 10 million human beings that are coming back to our communities nationwide every year, 10 million. So this is needed. But I just want to mention that I'm really glad that Helena mentioned the mental health aspect of it, because I know this personally, that when you're dealing with people that are recovering and are whether from alcohol or addiction, they're very stubborn. And they think the way they've been doing things for years and years and years is the right way. So there's a lot of undoing there. And I just appreciate the effort that you have to put into this. And I wish you so much success. And I did multitask and send an email asking if I could be a mentor.
Thank you. Alderman Savage had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the police department. I do want to commend them on this program. Sounds great. And I think it's absolutely the kind of thing we need to be doing. And so you said, when did you actually start this program?
We started in June, probably the first week in June we started.
Okay. Well, I'd suggest, I did hear some of the numbers, which sound really good since you only started in June, but and this is perhaps more to the city manager, but I think it'd be good to include this program and some of your others in the performance standards for the department, and even to the monthly city manager report, just to see how many people are coming through the program. And are you going to keep presumably you're going to keep some metrics in terms of how many of the people taking advantage of the program have successful transitions?
Absolutely. So Officer Smykel is in charge of that. She started the database. She has those numbers, and we will follow each individual through success. We will know where they dropped out at, if they did. We're praying that doesn't happen. We're supporting them along the way with various resources. One of the things that's important that when we get individuals is to make sure that we assess them. So we don't want to send someone to training who has a drug or alcohol problem. We want to send them for treatment first. And once we send them for that treatment first, then we get them into a job or training, because we want them to be successful. So we will keep those metrics, and they'll be provided.
Good to hear. And in terms of the larger issue, I think this is it sounds like a very useful program in terms of transitioning people and getting people and kind of breaking that cycle of crime that some people fall into. But I think one thing I'd really like to hear, this is not the meeting, but just to bring this up, because I've been bringing this up for months, is I think the elephant in the room are some of the issues that have come up that have been raised by the Black Lives Matter movement in terms of any kind of police reforms. And what I'm really want to hear about at some point soon, ASAP, is really what are we doing? Because I'm really clueless what we're doing, if anything, locally to make sure that we don't have a crisis like they've had nationally, or an incident like they've had nationally. And perhaps we're a little insulated, but I don't think we can assume that, because we thought we were insulated from the shooting, and we had a mass shooting at the Capitol building. So, and maybe that's something the council is going to have to lead from, but I think it'd be good to hear from the police department at some time. I mean, if I'm clueless as an elected official, I think the public's even more in the dark in terms of what we are doing to respond to that movement. I haven't heard from anybody yet, police department or public safety committee, about what is being done in the city. So just put that on your radar and in your mind for the future to everybody here, really. Thank you.
So Alderman Pindell Charles was next, and then the very dapper Alderman Gay after that. You're looking good there, Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to, first of all, commend the chief on his leadership in this program, as well as his stellar staff on this. I know they've been talking about this for a long time, and as a retired prosecutor, I mean, this is great. This handles and answers a lot of our issues that we have in our city. And as to, I'm not going to belabor it, but as to Alderman Savage's point about Black Lives Matter, I think the Black Lives Matter movement says and speaks to different components depending on who you are. But the main thing is a Black Lives Matter for me movement is to listen to people who are trying to tell the story about why we're in the situations that we're in. And when we approach it like the chief indicates from a social standpoint, then we begin to listen to what people's needs are and how we get them to where they need to be. No matter what they need, giving them the opportunities to get there, the experiences, to be able to choose what careers, what pathways, what your family unit looks like. All of those, to me, as an African-American female, it encapsulates the Black Lives Movement matter. And also within that, of course, is looking at public safety, looking at the police department and what all that does to our communities. But when we see our police department integrating themselves into these social issues, into getting people where they need to go, then to me, it bodes well. And we are able to establish better relationships with our police department when we don't see those issues occurring in Wisconsin and other places within our country. So that, for me, is the Black Lives Matter movement. Thank you.
Alderman Gay.
Yeah, thanks. The reason I'm dressed so nice, and I think it's fitting for this conversation, is because I was actually at court on behalf of a constituent this afternoon who was, they were making the decision of whether he'd be going through the juvenile justice system or be charged as an adult. And so, luckily, he will be go through the juvenile justice system. And so this is about the third time I've done this just over the course of the last 3 months. And part of what I talk about are these resources and are these programs that our city could potentially provide when they come back to our communities, because that is the issue that I see in Annapolis and in my ward often, is where, the young kids commit a crime and then they come back to the community with no help, with no resources, no skills. So I definitely think that is needed. To Rob's point, I definitely like to start, requesting that we start to keep data on all of this stuff so that we can be up to date on what's taking place, if we're being effective, if we need to fund it more, or just figure out where we could improve. And then finally, to his last point, I do think that we should also look to, how we can reimagine, or whatever people want to call it, our police department, whether it be in terms of funding, whether it be in terms of bringing new programs and opportunities. I just think that we can do work on both. We can assist our communities and provide the resources that they need, but also do so within our police department, which we know, also needs some work. So I hope that we can find the balance between the two in a timely manner. As Rob said, I think that, we've talked about these programs for a long, long time. So to start tracking the data and, hitting the ground, really, really running, that's what I look forward to.
Now, we have 3 other things to get to. So I want to thank everybody for this presentation. It's a great, exciting start And I can tell the passion that you bring to these programs, and the city of Annapolis is lucky to have you all. So looking forward to working with you on this council and moving things forward, like Alderman Gay says, quickly, so we can get results and measure results. So thank you all so much. We really, really appreciate this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, we have
the ID 23620
and the
2021 City Council meeting dates, adoption of 0520 legislative deadline during an election year. But we can, Regina's on the line, but we developed this, hopefully you all can see it, because it's an election year and we have certain things that must occur in resolutions, ordinances, and charters. We've set this out for you so you can see that if you're going to have any legislation that for next year at the end of the term before election, these are the deadline dates. Charter amendments should be approved no later than June 14th, submitted no later than June 14th for approval. Ordinances June 14th, resolutions by July 12th to give them plenty of time to be considered in the codified time periods prior to the election. The election period in November closes out the term, and so everything that's going to be voted on has to be done prior to that term ending.
Gina?
Okay, I just wanted to say that and a lot of that changed due to the adoption of 05. We only have regular meetings at the beginning of the month, and on the special meetings, there's no legislative action, and that was one of the reasons why the memo was created. We can't have legislation on our second meeting for the month, so we have to make sure it's all in timely.
So thank you for giving us lots of warning on this. Are there any questions? Alderman Gay?
Yes, so is this from the one that would have changed the dates, or am I thinking of something completely different?
Regina?
I'm sorry, what do you mean the one that would have changed? No, not for the election, no. No. Alderman Israel, when he was an alderperson on the council, he created sine die legislation that stated after a certain period of time that legislation couldn't be carried over to a second term. So it had to die. So if the council wanted legislation passed in their term, the deadline would be the July date. Because after that point, if it was a charter amendment, an ordinance, or a resolution that had to have a lot of hearings, we created that memo so you would know exactly when you would have to have it in to have it adopted in your term.
So is this just saying that after a certain point, because of the final year, we can't introduce legislation?
That is correct. And the charter states that during an election year, you don't have meetings in August and November. So that kind of moves the date back too. And that's how we came up with July. So it's three things. Yes, in an election year, the city council doesn't meet in August or November. The 05 took out the second meeting of the month. And so the only time we can have legislation is the last meeting of your council for your term is October the 25th, 2021. That is anything after that time dies pursuant to the ordinance.
Oh, wait.
Yep.
And currently that's already in place, so we can't introduce anything after that point.
October 2021.
Oh.
No, in 21. Yeah. So if you think about it now, we are in September. You only having to get everything in that you want for this term till July.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And you'll be knocking on doors in those months too.
Going to be very busy.
Along with the rest of us. Any other questions? Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, sir. Okay. Next item is ID 24420, which is proposed FY 2021 City Council meeting dates. Again, this is just to give you forewarning of what's going on with respect to meeting dates for this year, and take any questions you might have regarding those dates.
Mm-hmm. Alderman Savage had his hand up. Then Alderman Gay.
Yeah, I'm just assuming that you've checked these for any overlap with holidays.
Yes.
Alderman Gay.
Yeah, I guess my question is just more than related to the ordinance that we continue to mention. I think is 05, the one that made everything weird. So at no point, and I've probably vexed this before, even if we start the second meeting and we amend the agenda, then we can add legislation, or we just can't even do that?
You can.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
But you know, your agenda that you post wouldn't look like the actions that you're actually taking in your meeting.
Because we'd be doing it on the floor, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to ID 237-20, 5-year consolidated housing plan. Are you leading this, Ellie, or is Dr. Nash? What is it?
Dwan and I actually asked to have this put on the agenda, but I did see where it's not attached. But I see Sally here, and I didn't know if the writer, but I just briefly wanted to explain that Dwan and I are on the housing standing committee, and we were fortunate enough to get a copy of this. And it's a bonus that we get. I mean, it's a bonus document that we get because we receive we receive community development block grants, not enough money, but it is in turn a HUD requirement that we produce this book. So we have a consultant do it, and it is. I think Dwan is even more passionate about it than I am, but it is a huge wealth of current information about our current housing market, and Sally can go through the details. But if you want to know anything about our demographics and what our needs are, it is all in here, and there's and you don't have to like read it linearly, but there is like a question and answer part if you're just interested in different things. But it's our hope, and I don't mean to speak for Dwan, that the Housing Task Force, I think Dwan had them all sent a copy of this, because this is going to be a workbook for them. So Dwan, is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, I call it the Affordable Housing Bible. You know, it's been great for us, and it has a ton of information. We use it in our task force. It was put together by a great company out of Pittsburgh.
Oh, he's here.
I think Urban Design. Oh, is he on, John?
Yeah, John's here.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, Urban Design Ventures, I believe. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and so out of Pittsburgh, they've took all of our information, put it here. I enjoy reading it. And as Ellie mentioned, we will definitely use it throughout the task force and take some of the information and break it down so it's more easy to understand for our residents, and so that we can pinpoint, to some of those things as we make legislative priorities and recommendations for housing. So I love it, and I'm just grateful that we have it.
Right. Well, thank you for the invite, Alderman Tierney. I'm so glad that John Haglin, our consultant, was able to join us today for the presentation. We do have a presentation, but first, Teresa, I see you hiding back there. Did you want to say any words about your consolidated plan that you do every 5 years?
Sure. Sorry, my can't get my camera to work right now, but I'm really pleased actually that John was able to make it. The consolidated plan, and he'll explain in detail what the consolidated plan is, but it's something that we have to do for HUD every 5 years to tell everybody what we're going to do with all our CDBG money, how we're going to spend it. We have to have specific goals and objectives. Just a few words about John. John works for an organization called Urban Design Ventures, and they have done our last 2 consolidated plans, have done a wonderful job. And John is a graduate of Johns Hopkins and has worked in this field since 2009. So we're really, really happy to have him. And I'm sure he'll be able to answer a lot of your questions about affordable housing needs in the city. So thank you, John, for agreeing to join us.
Thanks, appreciate it. And thank you to council for taking this time to discuss this plan. I'm going to go ahead and share the presentation that I have with everyone. The actual plan that everything has been referred to, if you wanted to get the full plan, we could speak to, please request it from Dr. Nash. As well, this PDF will be available of what that I'll be going over here. Everyone has the view in front of them. There's a screen that says 5-year Consolidated Housing and Community Development Plan. Yes, all right. So this is covering federal fiscal year 2020 to 2024. For the city specifically, that is your year 2021 to 2025. This was prepared through the Planning and Zoning Department, through the Community Development Division. Oops, I'm sorry. Give me 1 minute here. My apologies to get this shared properly.
Gavin, just to manage time, do we close at 5 o'clock? I mean, does it?
Yeah, but we've still got 35 minutes, right? So,
okay, just so John knows how much time he.
I have to run just before 5 to a 5 o'clock with Stuart Pittman.
Oh, that's important.
Oh, you have it. Okay, gotcha. Sounds good. Could you go forward 1 page, please? So the City of Annapolis is an entitlement community through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. You may also know them as HUD. The entitlement grant that the city applies for every year is the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's also known as CDBG. Roughly, you get about $260,000. This year, you received an allocation of $266,292. You can go forward with the next slide. That amount varies year by year. It's based on a number of factors. You should keep in mind that it is a relatively small amount. It is an allocation that is to be used for the housing and community development needs for your low and moderate income individuals. What we're defining this as is we take the area median income. So that includes all the surrounding area, so Baltimore metropolitan area. And what we do is we find out what the median income is, and then anything from 0 to 80% of median income would be a qualifying household income for that. This is just a brief rundown of what some of the activities are that can be used for. In general, it's used for housing, housing improvement, housing purchase, housing development. That can be owner occupied, that can be renter occupied. You can also use it for public facility, a community center. You can use it for public safety activities. You can use it for public service activities. So things like recreation activities, training activities, along those lines. If you could move the next slide forward. So the plan that we put together is the consolidated plan. As Alderwoman Tierney said, this is a requirement. Every 5 years, this needs to be sent to HUD. It is required to get that allocation. In the consolidated plan, there are 5 parts to it. There's a consultation and citizen participation aspect. There's needs analysis. There's a market analysis, a strategic plan, and then lastly, there's the action plan, which covers your federal fiscal year 2020, and that refers to that amount of the CDBG allocation, which is the $266,000. So the plan in and of itself is a strategic plan that discusses your housing and community development activities. The fiscal year, or the federal fiscal year 2020 annual action plan says what activities will you spend your CDBG funds to actually fulfill those, to address those needs and to meet the goals that you state in the plan. Next slide, please. This is just a brief rundown of the consultation and the citizen participation that we completed. There were a number of public meetings. Those were done as stakeholder meetings. Those were done as actual open to the public meetings. There were individual meetings that took place. We just spoke with a number of different stakeholders. You can go to the next slide, please. And this is just a list of some of the groups that we spoke to get an idea of what was going on, what are the needs for the low and moderate income individuals in the city of Annapolis. If you go to the next slide, please. As I said, the second section was the needs assessment. In that, we did a detailed assessment of what the housing needs are, what the homeless needs are, other special needs. Those would be things such as seniors, developmental disabilities, individuals in public housing, individuals that are being reintroduced after incarceration, covers those areas. Community development needs was discussed. That again would cover your public facilities, your public services, your public safety, things as simple as streets and roads, to a lot more complex as to a financial training type class. Next need was the economic development needs. We just kind of take a look overall at what are the jobs that are available, what jobs are being filled by local residents, what jobs are being filled by outside residents. The last part is the administrative and planning needs. Those would cover, is there a need for certain types of studies? Obviously, you're undertaking the housing group that's being formed at that time. Maybe something that came out of that would be another possible plan, and that could be identified through that. Next slide, please. The market analysis was the third section. We took a look at the number of housing units. We took a look at the housing conditions, cost of housing, your public housing, homeless facilities, special needs facilities. Again, that's covering individuals with disabilities, senior needs. We looked at the barriers to affordable housing and your community development assets. Next slide, please. This section here for the market analysis, I just wanted to give you some highlights of what came out of that section. These are some important numbers. So if you can read these while I'm going through, I won't read them directly. I'll just give you an overview. The first statement is stating what you have of owner-occupied to renter-occupied housing units. You have about a 1-to-1 ratio of renters to homeowners. That is a very healthy relationship for a urban city area. What would be something to be concerned about is if for one reason the numbers were skewed in one direction or the other. Too many homeowners, too many renters. Those bring some unique issues that pop up with that. When it's a 1-to-1 balance, that's a good place to be. You have an older housing stock. With an older housing stock, be aware that it's going to be important to think about the need for ongoing housing maintenance, as well as anything that was built prior to 1979 may have lead-based paint present in that. Lastly, our data is all using census data. The last complete data set that HUD asked us to use was as of 2015. As of that point, the median home value for a house in Annapolis was $383,000. I'm sure that in 5 years since then, that number has increased. And the median contract rent was almost $1,300 per month. If you could go to the next slide, please. The City of Annapolis participated in the Baltimore Metropolitan Council's AI. It identified the following impediments. There's 4 impediments. These are the first 2. I think all 4 of these are very helpful. Impediment number 1, the city should always be looking to do fair housing education and outreach. That's to people that own housing, that rent housing, as well as just giving individuals as to what their rights and responsibility are for housing. Public policies and regulations. We'll get to this in a little bit, but this really kind of covers, I would say most directly, your zoning code. and what can be done with your zoning code to encourage affordable housing as well as fair housing. Next slide, please. Impediment number 3, continuing need for affordable and accessible housing. By that, what we're saying is there housing for every person at every income level, as well as that housing accessible to individuals that have special needs that are associated with them. The last part is impediment number 4, private lending and insurance practices. I probably should have quickly given this. Our firm probably has about 40 grantees that we worked with this past cycle of doing analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. While we weren't doing yours, other communities I've seen, if you make more than 5 loans, you have to report information to called the HMDA data. And I have yet to review any HMDA data from any area that does not show some level of discrepancies in terms of unfair lending practices when it comes to people of color. Be aware that while we're looking at this data, it's an overview data. You'll see that in your AI. This is another document that I do believe is available. Dr. Nash can answer that. It may just be in the finishing stages with that. But we continue to see patterns of discrimination in private lending as well as in insurance. Just something for everyone to be aware of. Next slide, please. The next information that I'm going to share here takes a look at AMI. That's the area median income. So that's saying that what is the median income, and then we take a look at these incomes that are around that. So roughly speaking, we broke this down with ACS data and said so that there are in the city 1,704 households that have incomes less than $20,000 per year. Of those households, only 13%, 221, are living in households that are affordable to them. What we consider affordable is saying that they can pay 30% of their household income. So obviously 30% of 20,000 is 6,000. So divided that up by 12 is 500 per month. The next cohort we took a look at was the 20,000 to 35,000. And that represents almost up to 40% of the AMI. And at that point, there were 1,641 individuals that fit in that cohort, and only 347 were in housing units that were affordable to them. Could you go to the next slide, please? The next cohort was 35,000 to 50,000. That represented 1,958 households. And only 584 of those households were living in units that were affordable to them. The 50,000 to 75,000, there were 2,840 households with that income, and about half of them were living in units that were affordable, 1,420 households. Next slide, please. The last group is anyone with an income over 75,000. And that's basically what our limit is. So when we're talking about this program, we're talking about households that have incomes below 75,000. In that cohort, 90% of those households were living in units that were affordable for them. Now, a quick conclusion that I don't want you to jump to, because the city of Annapolis is unique across the country. You have a lot of subsidized housing in the city of Annapolis. So as of 2019, there were 2,120 subsidized multifamily rental housing units in the city of Annapolis. And that is out of a total of 5,046 multifamily rental housing units. Why I'm bringing this up to you is that it's important to recognize that when we're discussing housing affordability, it's not only a function of, what is the cost of housing, but are people able to afford the housing? So just keep that in mind that when you look at these numbers, that you have been doing a very good job of providing subsidized affordable housing units out there. And it's important to take a look and remember that those units are there. Again, those are public housing units, tax credit, housing choice voucher, and the MPDE program that you have. Next slide, please. The strategic plan broke down to the priorities that are here. Which is a housing priority, a homeless priority, the other special needs priority, community development priority, economic development priority, and administrative and planning priority. If you go to the next slide, please. So the housing priority basically is to take a look at being able to provide homeowners and renters with affordable housing. Some ways that you can do that are actually building affordable housing, provide funds to rehab existing housing, whether it's new for sale housing or not, well, existing for sale housing, or to assist a homeowner that may be in a house. That can be done also to landlords that are providing affordable housing. We also want to take a look at increasing home ownership opportunities. That's a great way to build wealth. Most of American residents tend to build a lot of their wealth through home ownership. So that's something to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Homeless priority. This is continuing to provide services and shelters for homeless individuals in the city. Next slide, please. The other special needs priority, this is going to continue having facilities and services available to those that have special needs, again, elderly individuals with disabilities. In terms of housing, we can cover that in the housing priority as well. Next slide, please. The community development priority, this is to improve your community facilities as well as your public services. Next slide. The economic development priority is mainly taking a look at encouraging job creation, job retention, and job training opportunities. And then if you go to the last slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry, next to last. So this is the administrative and planning. Again, this is just to oversee the programs as well as if you need to do any plans to take a look at what are the needs in the community. Next slide, please. So this is the actual breakdown of what the projects were for your action plan. There is one column, which was what was requested, and then what was recommended. Again, remember that this is very difficult in terms of making tough decisions when we have a relatively limited budget that's available, meaning only that $266,000. So why I wanted to bring this up just quickly is so that you could take a look. Your kind of beginning activities are public service activities. Your activities towards the bottom are housing activities with a lot of work going on to the Housing Authority. That really concludes the plan. I'm sorry I ran through that pretty quickly. I figured getting to questions was maybe a little bit more important than getting into a slow and methodical detail with this. So any questions, happy to answer them at this time.
Alderwoman Finlayson has a hand up.
Thank you. And John, I couldn't see your last name, so forgive me for being casual. Okay. Did you do a comparison of where we were when you did our last consolidated 5-year consolidated plan? Are we able to see what areas in which we've improved and what areas need work?
Yeah, the plan that we did really was structured within the confines of what HUD is asking us to do. We compared numbers that were presented that basically take a look at 2010 to 2015. So to answer your question, it was not really too directed of taking a look at that. What I can say to you is that what we took a look at during that time period is that the cost of housing has gone down. So I think as a trend, when you're using 2015 as the period to take a look at, there was probably an uptick, that there was more affordability of the housing when we start taking a look at percentages and the number of units. But what we do take a look at is that incomes have not increased basically at the rate of inflation during that time period. So even though the cost of housing decreased, the incomes weren't increasing during that time period to kind of offset that. And again, when we do these needs and goals, the idea is not to create something that's easily solvable in a short time period. I think a lot of the issues and needs that are specific to the city of Annapolis are really global issues that aren't just specific to you. What you need to keep in mind are what are the things that you can do on the local level to take a look at that. Your MPDU program is a good program that was noted in the plan, and that continues to be a good plan. The participation in the RAI was a good step forward of taking more of a regional approach, of taking a look at fair housing and accessing neighbors that have maybe more resources, as well as definitely a strong knowledge pool, experience pool to pull from as well. But there wasn't anything that I would point out between looking at this plan and the previous plan that we had prepared to say that anything had moved in a negative direction. I would say that probably you're looking more of just kind of economic lull, again, with kind of housing costs going down a little bit, which was a positive, but income's not increasing too much.
Thank you. Can we get a copy of your presentation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Tierney, then Alderman Gay.
Just I guess three things. The MPDU, though, the percentage looked kind of very small. I mean, what's our scorecard on that? I think the concern there is that we were taking fee in lieu of for such a long time that it didn't end up in bricks and mortar. So and we sort of have to catch up. Do you have any thought on that?
I would say the numbers are low, correct, and they could be increased. But again, it's supposed to be an incentive program, so to say. I think there's kind of some other issues that are going on, especially when we kind of take a look at zoning that fit into the bigger picture. I think that there are really zoning issues to take a look at, really kind of twofold, which one would be the density of housing and then the type of housing. And to address and take a look at some of those zoning issues, I think then would encourage further development, which then you'd be taking a look at, additional benefits from the MPDU program. I'd recommend Howard County, which is a close community to you all, has had a lot of success with their MPDU program, especially in terms of creating mixed income development. I know that Annapolis is a lot more developed and has less developable land than Howard County does. And that gets in kind of a density issue that pops up as well. But in light of that, those are things that could be incorporated to have mixed income type development that would be beneficial.
I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Bible, story about loaves and fishes. That's what I think of with this measly $200,000+ that we're supposed to leverage, with all of these items. So I guess I'm talking to my colleagues. I think we need to talk to the state legislation, something that I still can't believe that the capital of Maryland only gets 200. I mean, it's pennies. And Teresa Wellman works miracles with it. But my last question is: you mentioned a couple of opportunity areas, and I know that your job wasn't to translate those into affordable housing, but do you see from the demographics and the economic opportunities that the best application of those opportunity areas is a mixed income development versus just strictly low income?
Well, I can speak just directly from I'm not a representative of HUD, but I am aware of what the regulations say. And really what HUD is stating is that they would like to not have investments just going into, you wouldn't just, put affordable housing just into an existing low income area. The idea is to create areas that are economically, that you're creating economic stimulation with that. So I want to be real clear with that, because that's a sort of a difficult statement to say, because the point is not to say that we don't want to help the most impacted areas. We do want to help the most impacted areas. But fair housing comes to the point of saying, that individuals want to have a fair choice. They want to have a decision as to where they go. So whatever you can do to improve other neighborhoods, to provide opportunities in those neighborhoods, is what individuals are looking for. And that is really what the letter of the law is with HUD, which is that idea of saying, how do we do our best job to make each neighborhood open and more closely related than just specific neighborhoods like that.
Okay. Thank you very much, because I simplified it basically that you came out with the conclusion that the jobs are here, the people are here, but their homes are unaffordable. So, anyways, Dwan.
On we go. Oh.
Sorry, I have a different computer. So I guess I just had two quick points, and I'm glad I actually had the opportunity to catch up with you, because in the plan, and then you've mentioned tonight, it says often that the issue with the city of Annapolis is that we don't have, or that we have enough affordable housing. We don't have enough affordable housing as in terms of the dollar. So we have the units, as you suggested, 2,000 out of the 4,500, but they aren't affordable. So in your experience, how can we stretch that out? I mean, obviously building, new units, as you suggested, making a mixed use, but with our existing units, how do we create affordability amongst that group?
I don't know if I would look at it so much of just staying status quo of what you would have. I think globally what you're dealing with is what every urban area is dealing with, that there are certain housing costs and individuals are making certain incomes, and there's a mismatch between what lower income individuals are able to make with that. Something unique in Annapolis is the economics involved with it. It's a small city that is desirable. Your cost of housing is very expensive. I live in Pittsburgh. 5 years ago, there were a number of neighborhoods that you could buy a house that may not be in perfect condition, but it was under $100,000. That's a unique situation and different than what you're dealing with. With the average price of a house being over $380,000, that's a challenge that you have. So I think it's important to recognize that there are market forces that make a limited supply of housing highly in demand in Annapolis. I'm sorry.
Would you say that change would also come with, as we move forward, and as mentioned previously, as we work with the task force, can we use this often? Something that comes out of the conversation is density, so that we can have, more space and more units. Another very interesting fact in the plan is that it talks about our lack of 2 and 1 bedroom housing. Most of the time, the apartments are built to hold 3 to 5 for a family or whatever. So we're missing that gap where college students like me or divorcees or whatever can actually come and live within our city. Could you speak to maybe some of the different types of zoning changes you've seen, or maybe alternative housing approaches that you've seen in your works?
Yeah, and exactly like you said, zoning is definitely something that you should be taking a look at, and I believe you are taking a look at. When we had the committee meeting, and I don't remember who it was from the legal department or the law office who had stated that there was some zoning changes that we're taking a look at. But there's really 2 areas that are going to be very important for you with zoning, and that's going to be, 1 is density, and 2 is the type of housing. So when we talk about density, exactly what you were saying, how are there certain offsets? How much land has to be used? You take a look nationally, like California is a great example of this. There are areas that there's requirements for housing that you have to have an acre of land. Obviously, that's going to say that someone would need to have a higher income to afford that. What can the city do within its existing limits to increase density from a zoning standpoint that would increase the supply of housing and theoretically, allow housing costs to go down? Another issue to take a look at is your type of housing. So like you were saying, having everything all single family is not going to help. That's not what your demographics look like. It's interesting to take a look at that. Your population has gone down, but your households have gone up over that time period. So really what that's saying to me is that households are getting smaller. So you don't need single family houses. They're going to be a more unique look with that. I know that in the city, there's been discussions about the ADU. That is an option that's out there as well. Creating.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. The ADU is. Is the ADU a good option?
The ADU, I'm not going to say whether it's a good option or a bad option. You all are empowered to make your decisions and take a look at things. What I can say to you is that the ADU gives you one option to, diversify your housing stock. And that's something that you should be taking a look at. So really the question is, how can the ADU be used? There are benefits that are out there to that, not only just from a density standpoint and providing housing. I think that if you were to engage just with social service providers, there's opportunities that can take place with that. Seniors, training, interactions with that. So that's where housing kind of goes beyond economics.
Can I hand the gavel over to Rhonda? She has her hand up next.
No, I just have one quick thing. I remember when Alderman Carl Snowden was on the council, this was years ago, and he brought up the fact of the issue of possibly taking the Bywater community and giving people who lived in that community the opportunity to purchase their homes. Recently, it ran across my thought or ran across some information that possibly that is still part of their lease. I won't say it like that, but I ran it by by Dr. Nash. I don't know if that's an option, but I thought that was, when Carl brought it to the attention, I thought it was a good opportunity. I don't know any more about it, but that's certainly for me, in my estimation, something to explore. Now, whether it's not worthy, that's a conversation for another day or for someone else to take a look at. But I thought that was something that was, I think they have 308 households there. It's the largest subsidized housing community we have in Annapolis. So I didn't know if that was a possibility, but that's just a food for thought.
But I do mean that, Rhonda or Ross. Will one of you guys take the gavel? Because I've got a 10-minute travel time to the next thing. And if you guys are going to go a little bit over, I don't want to rush you. Would you? Is that okay, Mr.
Sure.
City Attorney?
Ross, go right ahead.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, Ross, thank you.
Rhonda, you have a meeting to go to.
I'm in the next meeting, right? So I'll take that meeting.
I think you guys all have 5 o'clocks as well, don't you? You do?
Yeah, we actually have an affordable housing task force meeting about
Okay, so everybody has a 5 o'clock. Is it okay if we wrap it up?
Can we ask to get sent the both the PowerPoint and also the document itself, the study?
Okay.
Thank you.
John, this was great as usual. Thank you so much.
That was great, John. Thank you. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that full document as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
And a good work session, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy your next sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we don't have anybody to adjourn us.
Wait, where did he go?
He had a meeting too. I move we adjourn.
Okay, I'll do my thread. I motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.